Everyone hear me? It's good? We've got a great panel ahead of us. I was going to be joined by four. For circumstances not under their control, we're going to have two, a very intimate conversation. I'd like to ask, let's get their full names right, Khaled Tash, Chief Marketing Officer at Beverages AMS Bashan, to join me, as well as Will Platt-Higgins, Director of Global Account Partnerships at Facebook. Got a lot to talk about. I'm going to invite them just to introduce themselves. I'll put a bit of an introduction of what we're going to talk about, and we'll have some fun. We want questions from the audience if you want, and they're going to enjoy a great conversation about digital marketing. Will, go ahead. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Will Platt-Higgins. Contrary to the accent, I'm actually based in New York, where I've been living for about the last 16 years. And I am the director of our global partnerships group. So we work with a lot of large multinational advertisers like Nestle and Ford and Unilever and so on, all around the world, to help them be as effective and successful on the platform as we can.
Excellent, excellent. Khaled?
Hello everyone, Khaled Tash, Chief Marketing Officer at AMS Bashan, most famous for the brand Rabi'a tea. Passionate marketeer, been in the business for about just over 15 years now, and looking forward to the panel discussion today.
Excellent, excellent, Khaled. Okay, I'm going to put some background into what we're going to be talking about. So digital on a global marketing scale has become 25% of all media spent. In the region, Digital Media Service, the Shwaya Group, we're seeing it around 6 to 8%. A lot of brands are spending a lot more, and they're seeing great return, while other brands are spending a lot less and not in tune with new consumer behavior. FMCGs have become leaders in digital, and I think we've got Khaled's going to add a lot of value. He's got some really interesting insights. So we talked about percentage. How much is Rabi'a spending on digital from the total mix? And share with us some of the digital activities you're doing today.
Sure. I think I mean the 25% of the total media spend is actually quite low to start with.
So you're spending 25% of your 2015 budget on digital.
We spend. Well, in 2015, in 2014, we spent 80% of our communication budget on social, digital, and online, which I think is the reasonable mix. 25, that represents about a quarter of the total marketing spend that we have. I think the consumer truth is that media has changed. And consumption, we've seen the numbers. I was actually, I never saw that other piece of information about that the mobile screen has become actually the first screen for Saudi consumers.
It's with us all day.
Yeah,
it's with us all day.
I think that's the fundamental truth that every marketeer has to keep in mind. And if you're spending any less than half your budget on digital or social, you're doing something wrong.
Wow. When did all this start with Rabi'a?
Just a couple of years ago. So this is the second year. So a lot of what I'm going to say is actually not yet proven, but at least in the process of being proven. We took a very risky and brave kind of attempt to say that, okay, the consumer has changed, the landscape has changed, the media scene overall has changed, and we want to take the lead in that. One of the advantages of being a local company, a smaller scale versus the multinationals, less bureaucracy, faster decision making. So it enabled us to do this quite quickly.
But being an older company, I hear a lot from other Saudi companies that the boss, the family business, or the board are reluctant to take that leap on digital. Yes. You're saying 25% of your marketing budget, 80% of your communication budget is on digital. That just doesn't, I don't hear that happening every day. And even I think, well, internationally, that just doesn't happen as well. So Could you elaborate on your experience on that so other decision makers you can learn from that? And I'd like to hear also across the region as well.
Sure, I think it's definitely a case by case, and I totally subscribe to the challenge that marketeers face, especially when it's a company that was run by someone who invested so much of time and energy, and it's usually from older generations, and so that's definitely a challenge. Two things are key. You have to prove it. We need to use information like what was just shared by the other guy from Facebook, Jonathan, and you need to use that data. There's no doubt. Even if you talk to your father today, and you tell him, do you watch TV as much as you used to watch it? Do you read newspapers as much as you? Everybody knows that the media landscape has changed. So I think any failure to convince boards, CEOs, top decision makers on the need to transition the majority of your budget or a big portion of your budget into social and digital is a failure of the marketeer himself in presenting the data. We were lucky enough. We had a very high level of understanding. I think it also has to do with the measurement part that perhaps we're going to talk about. But if you try to measure social and digital in any different way versus how the business used to measure marketing effectiveness and marketing ROI, I think you're going to fail. The fundamentals remain the same. You need to prove that social media, digital, online will give you the same market share results that you used to get with traditional media, sales results, awareness, trial, consideration, preference. So unify the measurement, and I think you will get there.
Yeah. Please jump in, both of you. Yeah. Just measurement's a big part of what Will's been talking about.
Yeah, measurement's a big deal. Look, I mean, you know, we're in the middle, as Jonathan pointed out, we're in the middle of this incredible media transition. This hasn't happened since the 1950s when television overtook the dominant player, which had been radio for a long time. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary to be a marketer and an agency out there and figure out what to do. And there's a fairly famous quote, which must be 15 or 16 years old now, from the global marketing director of Nike. And this is going back 15 years, and he said, it's not that I have a bias towards digital, I have a bias towards my consumer. And that's really the only way to think about it. You know, whether you're an FMCG marketer, whether you're an auto marketer, it doesn't matter. We're guided by, in a way, there's sort of the P&G mantra of the consumer is boss. We're guided by that. And we just need to look where people are spending their time. Now that's one thing. That's a statement of fact, and we can all prove that out. And all you've got to do is go outside and drink a glass of water and have a look around, and you see everybody glued to their phones. And it doesn't matter which country I'm in the world, it's the exact same. The phones differ maybe a little bit. But the measurement piece is key. So say, okay, well, I understand where people are spending their time. I understand where the eyeballs are. But wow, you want me to come off television? I mean, I've been running on TV for 50 years. This is a big deal. You're expecting me to do that. I know intuitively the eyeballs are there, but how do I know if I take money here and put money over there? How do I know the cases will keep coming in? And we do a lot of work on this. We do a lot of work trying to make sure that people understand the efficacy of the platform. And then now, I would say sort of 3 or 4 years in, to do meta-analyses across all the studies that we've done to work out, more importantly, what are the drivers of success. And the good news, for anybody who's a classically trained marketer out there, and I bet there's a lot, the good news is that the drivers of success are pretty similar to all of the drivers of success that we all grew up with.
So what we're trying to say is, the same measurement used on TV, radio, print has to apply to digital. Yes, likes, clicks, all that are important metrics has to impact the business. So how have you addressed that? How are you measuring today? I mean, a lot of people are trying to show that, an ad campaign on this website generates sales. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. There's so many platforms out there. How have you been different? And just to add, Khaled hasn't shared this, but he's spending zero. He used to spend a lot of money on TV. He's spending zero this year on TV. He's moved a big chunk of that to digital. Let's hear more about how you've...
The whole chunk to digital and social.
That.
So when we started, we actually had this big big challenge of how are we going to measure this, and how are we going to prove at the end of the year that this actually worked better than traditional. And we looked into various possibilities of different customized research to measure the effectiveness of a Facebook campaign, a promoted tweet, and how can that translate into business results. And then we decided to drop all of it and just focus and continue to measure the business based on the same metrics that we used to measure before, which is basically your brand equity monitor that we do. So you get the awareness, the trial, the consideration across the different demographics of the audience, of the consumers, by region, by city. If our social media investment and our digital investment is not impacting the market in the same way our traditional used to, then there's no point of moving the money from here to there. So basically my advice, just continue the same measurement that you used to, the same KPIs, and apply them on digital and social.
Yeah, I mean, I was had the fortune to talk to Khaled earlier, and he's an ex-Procter & Gamble marketer himself, and you know, that is the main advice. And I think in many ways, you know, the Facebook, as we know, the Facebook platform has evolved a little bit, certainly from a commercial point of view, as a brand builder. Accruing likes, you know, I was in India last year, and somebody remarked to me, you know, likes are, they're like love. You know, the more likes I get, that I see that as more love, and it makes total intuitive sense. The problem is when you stack up all the likes at the end of a campaign, and you stack up the comments, and you stack up the shares, it doesn't actually show itself in any kind of business outcomes. And ultimately, that's what we're in business to help provide. So this is wonderful advice, which is just whatever your business metrics were before, they remain the same.
Now, just a comment on that. It's still important to analyze likes, views, shares, the comments, doing the social listening, and looking at the impact of posts, of ads, because that helps you improve on the communication side. So it's still very, very important to analyze that stuff. But from a business impact perspective, just use the same tools that you used to.
I mean, okay, we're talking about social media. You have to bring up content. I mean, Facebook, other social media channels, without the content of publishers, brands, yes, it's not empty space. Friends still communicate, but the value of content that companies are providing is adding a lot of value to day-to-day usage of social media, from shares to reading, finding out about news. I read somewhere that when breaking news happens, it happens on social media in seconds, and then a minute later you'll see it on, you know, an international publisher. But so what those publishers are doing is making sure their content is appearing on social media first.
Yes.
And then making sure that follows and read more on the website, but they're getting that part. So publishers, I hear the buzzword brands as publishers a lot. I disagree with the idea where a brand can be a full-time publisher. In sense, yes, there's Red Bull, Nike, Adidas, some people who can come up with great content all year long. I do believe that brands should create own content, should be publishing content. I'd really like to hear, how are you being able to generate, for the hundreds of thousands of followers and that you attract, daily content, you know, or hourly or weekly? How are you addressing that?
So it's definitely the biggest challenge, and if you look at and we're probably, as a brand, we're also guilty of that as well. But if you look on Facebook and you take a look at the MENA brands and what they're trying to do, so be it in Saudi, but primarily in Saudi, I really get frustrated when a brand tells me good morning, for example. That's not your job as a brand. Okay.
And you have six brands telling you good morning.
Yeah, and in Saudi, for example, we say Happy Friday, Jum'ah Mubarak. And if I hear it from a brand, what does that mean? I mean, who are you trying to portray as a brand? So content, definitely the biggest challenge that we face. I think one of the things that worked quite well for us is making very clear choices on platforms. So, for example, health and sports for us as a brand were key platforms. Trying to generate relevant content, entertaining content related to those two areas helped us. By focusing on those two areas, it helped us get together and develop content that is, I think, more useful for the consumers, more relevant, more engaging.
But how do you create it? In-house, outsourced, dedicated team?
We're still trying out as almost every possible scenario. So we have content that is developed by freelancers. We have content that is really pre-planned, very well structured in terms of the process of creating it. We have spontaneous content that comes every now and then. So we're still in a test lab, I would say, when it comes to creating content.
What are brands doing around the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the organizational structure, I think people are still working on it. I mean, I certainly will talk to some trends that we're seeing. I think the way to think about this so that it doesn't become burdensome and you know a real worry is just to think about relevance. And you know, why? Just step back for a minute. Why is it? This is a sort of question, for example, that my 75-year-old dad might ask me. Why is everybody on Facebook? Like, in other words, you know, what's all the fuss about? Well, let's just take a step back. What is all the fuss about? The fuss is that if all of us right now boot up our Facebook news feeds, every single one of us will see something different. If we all go to CNN or Le Monde or Der Spiegel or whatever it might be right now, we'll all see the same thing. But on Facebook, we'll all see something that's personalized and unique to us. And that it's really important to understand that. So that's what you're working with, right, is just the provision of relevance. And as a brand, you know more, you and your agency partners know more about you know, your strategic target, the people who are buying that brand, than anybody else. And the key then is to provide these people with something that actually will be relevant. So for example, if you're in the baby care space, actually receiving information about a good night's sleep or a high quality diaper or something like that could be highly relevant to me and very welcomed in my feed. You know, we have conversations. Think about a more prosaic brand like an air freshening brand. Oh, an air freshening brand has no role on Facebook. Well, actually, if you own a pet or if you smoke cigarettes or something like that, that's actually highly relevant for you at particular points. So relevance is key. I think we would say you don't need to feel that you need to be pushing stuff out every